Hey all, I live here in China without a car, as do quite a few foreigners living in this country. And this means I've had to get used to many different ways of traveling around the city or between cities without a car. Today I'm going to talk a bit about my favorite ways of traveling within cities in China. All opinions here, of course, are my own, but I'm going to be trying to explain them in a way that will help you understand your own options and make your own decisions for how you'd like to get around the cities in China. So, let's go. First option, the metro. This goes by different names in various Chinese cities. The Paris-inspired name metro is the most commonly used one, but some cities do call their system the subway,
while others call theirs simply rail transit.
Because metro is the most common term, that's the one I'm going to be sticking to in this video. In 1990, mainland China had only one metro line in Beijing, in what is one of the great infrastructural feats of the 21st century. There are now over 40 mainland Chinese cities with at least one metro line, and many more are being built as we speak. You can't find a metro in every mainland Chinese city, but the cities that foreigners are most likely to live in or visit do tend to have them, so they're a popular option.
They are usually clean and efficient, and are typically well signposted both in Chinese and English, both of which languages are also typically used in station and train announcements.
They have a very clear advantage over buses in that they never get stuck in traffic or at stoplights. Now, they are mostly underground lines, which means that you're not going to get to see much when traveling except the inside of a tunnel. The metro also does tend to be costlier than a bus. Unlike in many Western countries where rail transit systems charge flat fares, most Chinese, and for that matter other Asian, metro systems do charge fares based on distance. And this means that for a long journey, a bus would actually save you a few yuan over the metro, at a cost of some time, of course.
Transferring lines is normally simple. Signs are generally well posted to show you the way to other lines, and you won't need to worry about getting a new ticket.
Its ease and speed makes the metro the preferred method of public transportation, assuming it's going to your destination. But you can't take the metro everywhere, so we will have to consider some alternatives. Which brings us to our second option, buses.
These are ubiquitous, and they go pretty much everywhere in any Chinese city. At least in well-developed cities, they're generally kept in good shape and reasonably clean.
Another advantage is that they are cheap. In major cities, at least, most buses have a fare of just 2 yuan, which is about 30 US cents.
Unlike in some other Asian countries, you don't pay both when getting on and off, only when getting on.
Most buses also have the same fare throughout their route, though there are a few long routes where the fare decreases the closer to the end you get on the bus. This is a standard practice in Hong Kong, but not in mainland China. Do note that most buses do not have a conductor to give out change, so if you're paying in cash, save up those 1 yuan coins or bills. In major cities at least, you can avoid this by paying with a public transportation card or phone app. Buses are cheap, and they're everywhere, but their disadvantage is fairly obvious. They are slow.
Of course, they have to stop at all the same traffic lights that all the rest of the traffic does, plus their stops to pick up passengers. Needing to keep on the right side of the road to make these stops keeps them in slow traffic.
And the stops themselves can be exceptionally long during rush hours, when the driver has to wait for a long line of passengers to board the bus, pay their fare, and move on to the back of the bus, sometimes crowding in like sardines.
This is another disadvantage to buses in China. They can be exceptionally crowded.
Of course, so can trains, but buses do have the added disadvantage of making much sharper turns, making those crowds all the more uncomfortable. Another disadvantage for foreigners is that while many buses do have announcements in both English and Chinese,
the signs at bus stops telling what other stops buses go to are usually in Chinese only, so it can be a challenge to know which bus to get on in the first place if you can't read Chinese characters.
So as I said, the metro is usually the preferred choice for foreigners in China. So what might make you choose a bus instead? Here are some main reasons. 1. You're somewhere without a metro.
If you're not in a big city, buses may be the only means of public transportation and your only choice if you don't want to spring for a taxi.
2. You're really on a budget. This doesn't tend to be a popular reason among foreigners, but a fair number of locals on shoestring budgets do choose to forego the metro and cross town on a bus just to save a few yuan. 3. As a connection. Maybe you're trying to get somewhere on the metro, but either your origin or your destination isn't quite within walking distance of a station. Then a bus can help you with those first or last kilometers. And 4, you just want to see more. Of course, most metro lines in big cities are underground. So, if you've got tons of time on your hands and want to see the city go by, go ahead, hop on a bus. A last option to consider, in addition to metro and the buses,
taxis or ride-hailing apps such as Didi, which works like Uber or Lyft. These are, obviously, more expensive than buses or the metro.
However, they're still less expensive in mainland China than in a Western country or even Hong Kong. Most people do find them relatively affordable, and they are quite useful when you have a lot of luggage, or if you just want to get somewhere directly and speedily.
Just be aware that in some cities at certain hours of the day, traffic might mean you're not really saving any time over the metro.
Of course, a taxi or Didi can be combined with the metro if either your origin, your destination, or both are not within walking distance of a station and you don't want to fiddle with a bus. A difficulty is that drivers cannot be expected to speak English, or for that matter, any language other than Mandarin. Often, not even the local variety of Chinese, since so many drivers are migrants. For example, Guangzhou taxi drivers are infamous for not speaking Cantonese.
Mitigating this difficulty is that modern ride-hailing apps do pretty well at translating messages to your driver, and you can also be prepared by having your destination written out in Chinese characters. But don't plan on using pinyin.
Despite my love for public transportation, I do end up using taxis and Didis on a regular basis, so I'd say it is a good option to consider. Well, I hope you enjoyed this little talk about how to get around a Chinese city and the advantages and disadvantages of each mode of transportation. And none of this is saying anything about long-distance travel, which is something I hope to cover in another video later. And if you don't want to miss that video when it comes out, this would be a great time to like this video and subscribe to my channel. Thanks so much for watching. See you all next time. Bye.